I say once the gun goes off, there's no more time for fear and nervousness.
This is Taylor Roe, one of the most decorated distance runners in Oklahoma State University history.
I definitely change into something else, that's for sure. The competitor that I am, let that kind of take over.
But for Taylor, sometimes getting to the starting line is a bit difficult.
I would definitely have some very dramatic responses to racing. I mean, everybody works through their pre-race nerves different. Mine was sometimes in tears.
Welcome to BYU Radio's Big Stories, telling the amazing and inspiring tales from the Big 12 and beyond. I'm your host, Cleon Wall. In this podcast episode, we'll detail how Taylor used her legs and internal drive to overcome doubts before each race. This is Trust Yourself with Taylor Roe.
Our kids were all pretty active and athletic and did stuff, and we encouraged them to do things outside.
It would surprise no one that T and Jen Roe's children grew up with athletic genes.
We met at the University of Washington. We both had track and cross-country scholarships, so we ran there. I probably enjoyed running more than T did.
I was always in love with basketball. I had a brother that was a very, very good basketball player. Always wanted to be a good basketball player, but when it came right down to it, I could either go and try to play junior college basketball or I could go run at a D1 level. And so the choice was pretty clear to me. It's going to sound really overblown, but I owe everything that I have today to running to a certain degree. Meeting Jen, at UW, that never would have happened.
And the Roes would never have had athletic kids like Taylor.
Both my parents running in college, it was an advantage more than a pressure. They were not telling me go out and go for runs. If anything, they were telling me be a kid, go just play in the backyard, go try everything. Just kind of fell into running because my older siblings did it. And I just wanted to be like them.
She was just one of those kids that, like, when she played soccer, she loved to run. Basketball, loved to run. And PE got excited for the mile run. Kids don't get excited for that.
She'd be like, yeah, we're doing the mile in PE. She would be so excited.
And, they time you and, you do it probably like every month or so. And every time it was just, can I beat the boys? How fast can I run? So it was, one, trying to beat everybody, but then also kind of testing myself I remember just being so happy I'd be able to come home and be like, I ran this time today, and just the improvement.
Very competitive and very almost borderline obsessive compulsive.
The Roes knew Taylor was a top-notch runner when she was in first grade.
I think it started here in Lake Stevens. So we would come up for this called the Viking Fun Run every year. And it goes all the way from very, very little kids, like preschool age, all the way up to, sixth grade. So we'd make the trek up. It was like a Friday afternoon, and the kids would run it. And all of our kids did fairly well, but Taylor was running it one year, her first time she ever did it. And we would just sit up kind of in the stands or on the ball field, on the football field where they'd finish. And Jen and I were kind of watching from afar, and we saw this, you could see like the silhouette of this girl running along this ridge line. It's not a very long run. It was probably maybe a mile or maybe a little bit further. But we were watching, and I'm like, wow, I wonder who that is, because I couldn't identify it as her. I hadn't seen her really run before. And I'm like, that girl's just getting further and further ahead. And then as she started to come closer into focus, I was like, oh my, that's Taylor. And she just seemed to kind of light up, getting to do that and having fun.
When Taylor made it to sixth grade, she started training with the junior high track team, but she didn't compete in any events.
There was a junior Olympic cross-country meet in Seattle, and I looked it up, and so we just entered her.
I wasn't even able to be there. I was coaching football at the time, but the report came back that she won the race, but then it was a big laugh because she had gone the wrong way at some point in the race, didn't know the course or whatever, and at some point, even after going the wrong way, had corrected herself and gotten back on track. The next step from there is a regional meet, which took place over in Spokane. So she ran in that race and won that race by a significant margin.
Next up, the Junior Olympic National Meet in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Then, like any dad does, I say no, but then I find myself in my office catching up on work and started, what's a flight to Albuquerque cost?
T eventually gave in and surprised his daughter with the chance to compete, but it was a hastily planned trip, and Taylor didn't get a chance to see the cross-country course before she raced.
My thought process going down was, this will be great exposure for her, great opportunity to get a sense of like how great some of these runners are, and I thought that's all it would be. She would get maybe a big, huge slice of humble pie. Not that she was airing it, but it was like just a dose of reality. Like, this could be a big deal, right?
The gun went off. Taylor and the rest of the racers flew down the course. T positioned himself in an area of the course to see how she was doing.
So she came by me and had gapped the field by just a slight amount. But she has a really high sports IQ, and I could sense that there was weakness there, so I just kind of gave her the signal. I said, let's go a little bit. Let's test them a little. And she took off, and by the time she rounded the corner and came back by me, which was less than 600 meters, she had a pretty significant lead at that point. And at this point, we're at like the 1.5 mile mark, and she's got a pretty good-sized lead. And so she was able to carry that out and actually win. So she was, quote-unquote, a junior Olympics national champion at 12 years old, which she was just kind of on cloud nine. We were having fun going around that day. She's just in like a regular old t-shirt and a pair of shorts and these lime green spikes that we got at Ross, and just tore it up. And that was where she got the bug. From that on, she was all about it. She was loving it.
There was just one problem. The Roes didn't stick around for the awards ceremony. Parents of fellow runners found out as the father-daughter duo was on their way back to the airport.
Why are you on this bus right now? You should be back there for the awards. I said, I'm a bad dad. I didn't plan this out very well. We actually have a flight to catch to go home. And I had no idea that this was what was going to happen today.
Taylor's gold medal was eventually mailed to her.
When did I fall in love with running? I think I always just loved like testing myself and just seeing how good could I be. And I loved that it was kind of I wasn't relying on anyone else. I guess I liked that it was pretty straightforward, that it was just who ran faster than who as far as when you're racing. I just kind of knew whatever like Heavenly Father had blessed me with, I was going to try to maximize. And it was not going to be basketball because I didn't grow. Not insanely athletic in that way. I would say I view it as a gift of Heavenly Father.
Taylor used that gift to get the attention of college coaches across the nation.
Taylor was really a high-level athlete at 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. She was amongst the best in the country for her age group.
Dave Smith is the director of track and field at Oklahoma State University.
And so she caught our attention. I always keep my finger on the state of Washington.
And for good reason. Dave is originally from the Evergreen State.
When I was a sophomore in high school, Taylor's dad was a senior, and we ended up at the state meet together, and he won the state meet and I was second. But I beat his longtime rival.
Coach Smith used that to his advantage when recruiting Taylor.
Colleges will send recruitment letters often, like it's just like a generic card they send to like hundreds of recruits. But this one stood out to me because it was a handwritten note. So it meant a lot. And I was reading it, and it kind of got to, it's trying to sell you on, the program, whatnot. And then at the end, it was just like, say hi to your dad for me. I raced him in high school. And I looked at the name Dave Smith. And now Dave Smith is not a unique name whatsoever, but I told my dad, I was like, this Dave Smith guy says that he knows you. I don't know, it's in a card, and he looked at the card, and he's like, Dave Smith.
And so in my office, I have some photographs from when I was in high school and some collegiate photos, and I pointed to the podium on the state track meet when I was in high school. I see this guy right here? That's Dave Smith. And because I didn't know where he was, I didn't know anything about, where he'd ended up. Of course, I did all my Google research before I said, this is the guy. She said, oh, that's interesting.
Honestly, without even that, I don't know if I would have looked at Oklahoma State as seriously. It just kind of stood out to me.
At the time I really got involved in recruiting her, she was struggling athletically. Her career took a turn for the worse, and she was all of a sudden she was not receiving the same attention she had before.
She had struggled a little bit, wasn't, the top kid in the nation anymore. And Dave was unwavering. I still believe in this kid. This kid's gonna do great things.
I think that opened her up to someone who was paying attention and wanted to talk to her and sort of say, what's going on? What's happening? What do you think's going on? It gave her an opportunity to maybe say things out loud that she didn't get a chance to say or no one ever asked her. And I think that maybe helped her sort through some things and helped me get an idea of who she was and how she would deal with adversity. And the more I talked to her, the more I liked her.
I'm just thankful they took the time to write a note, and then because I pretty much knew from my first phone call with Dave Smith that was the coach I wanted to run for.
He showed that he extended that hand to her and built that bond with her. And I think she was He was her ride or die from that point forward. Like, they had that bond.
She came here, and her first cross-country season was, I would give her a C. It wasn't terrible, it wasn't great, but it was, we were thinking, well, we got some time. And during the inter-track season, she started to improve, and I'd say maybe she's a C+, B-, and looking like she was about to get going, and then COVID hit. And probably that was a great thing, because it gave us all a reset, it gave her a chance to develop. She came back the next fall, and she was a different athlete. One time we decided to try the steeple, because again, in that year we thought, I don't know if you're ready to be a national contender in the 5K. The steeple is the easiest path.
I attempted to be a steeplechaser my second year of college. And by attempt, I mean I did one race and one race only of it. It was pretty early into the race, but I completely crashed over a barrier. Finished the race, qualified for the NCAA regional meet, but we found out later she had this broken back. I was just convinced that it was a bruise, or I don't know. It was like, this pain's gonna go away. And unfortunately, it ended my season. I had a stress fracture in my sacrum. I was devastated because I was hoping to be a contender at nationals, and I'm being shut down weeks before that with no chance of qualifying, no chance of being in that race. So it was definitely devastating.
Taylor rehabbed and returned to Stillwater for her third season. While she returned to racing form, one thing never seemed to go away during her cowgirl career.
I would definitely have some very dramatic responses to racing. I was kind of known for being in tears before running, before races. I kind of would joke with my teammates like, oh, I haven't cried before this race, it's not gonna go well. I think that's just because I cared so much, so deeply about what I was doing, and I think just like the nerves, the energy, crying was kind of my release, which, everybody works through their pre-race nerves different. Mine was sometimes in tears. When she relieves stress and tries to unload before a big competition, I learned you just weather that. You listen. You don't try to convince her otherwise. You don't try to tell her, no, you are good enough. You can do this. You let her vent. Taylor's third year, we were at the national championships in Birmingham, Alabama. And I came back to the hotel, and I saw Taylor on the phone and walking, and she looked over at me, and I saw that she was in tears. And I thought, oh, great. She's definitely on the phone with her mom, because when she gets upset, she calls her mom. And he saw me crying, and I remember being, oh no, now he's gonna wanna talk to me about it. I was like, I just wanna be alone. She was crying pretty hard, and she told her mom, I gotta go, coach is here, I need to talk to him. So she got off the phone, and we walked around the parking lot of the hotel for an hour and a half, with Taylor telling me that she was done running, it was no longer any fun, she didn't want to do this anymore. And I said, well, okay, then don't run. It's national championships, don't run, it's okay. And of course she responded with, well, I gotta run, it's the national championships. I said, okay, well then you gotta run. But I don't want to, because it's no fun. And so we went in this loop for an hour and a half. I left her at that point thinking, I don't know if she's gonna run or not. He likes to joke that I quit the team 2 days before nationals, but I did not quit. The next day she won her national championship and everything was great. When I won indoor nationals in the 3,000, that has to stand out to me because I'm just really proud of the way I raced it. For a couple minutes there was just no fear and just willing to accept whatever happened. In the race, I took a risk by going to the front and pushing pretty far out from the finish. And by the end, people were catching me, and I was able to kind of hold on and still have saved a little bit something for the end. And she came over and gave me a hug, and it was as if that never happened. I said, hey, remember yesterday we walked around for a year and a half and you were gonna quit? She goes, oh, I didn't mean that, I wasn't serious.
Taylor went from being on top of the world to not qualifying for nationals the following season. She had a big decision to make going into her final year of racing eligibility. For me, it was like, okay, am I gonna run professionally? Am I gonna try to go to grad school, earn a master's? Am I gonna go into a different professional career? And I was kind of faced with, is running gonna really work out for me or not? I had to kind of face reality, and I just decided to rededicate myself and just give it kind of one last really hard push and just know that I have one more year guaranteed left to do this. And it was hard. I had a disappointing race at cross-country nationals that fall. Okay, now I only have 6 months left to make this work, but I'm just proud of, hard work I put in.
We've never won a conference title on track. We had an opportunity to. She was the first person I went to and said, hey, we can't do it without you, and you're gonna have to put that big S on your chest and be Superwoman. And do you wanna do it or not? And she was like, let's go. And so then I could approach the rest of the team and say, hey, we've got an opportunity, let's go for it. And we won, we ended up winning a conference title.
Just deciding to give one last push, and it's really paid off.
It paid off by signing with Puma to run professionally.
I'm just fulfilling what little me wanted or dreamed of, I guess.
She is extremely hard on herself. It's never good enough. There's never a peak. There's never a finish line. Every time she gets to the goalpost, she just moves the goalpost and said, I haven't gotten there yet. So, I think she's someone who will never be satisfied. In part, that's her superpower, but it's also one of her greatest weaknesses. She could give herself a lot more grace and maybe do a little better.
If I was to give advice to my younger self, I would tell myself to have more grace with myself and be more patient.
But that passion, that constant drive forward is what makes her great.
I think I just have a lot of trust in myself that when things get hard, I'm gonna fight. Because you kind of fear, am I gonna have it at the end of a race? Sometimes my problem would be I would just think too much of the end result, what's gonna happen. But I trust myself that I'm gonna fight to the end, or I'm gonna give my best effort, and whatever that is, I've been very lucky because it's worked out for me. Learning to trust myself is definitely one of the most impactful lessons I've learned at Oklahoma State.
Trust Yourself with Taylor Roe was produced and written by Whitney Sheffield and Cleon Wall. Music and post-production by Finn Morrison. Make sure you watch BYU TV's Big Stories by logging on to BYUSN.com. Big Stories is a production of BYU Radio. Hey everyone, Cleon Wall here again. I'm inviting you to check out another BYU Radio podcast. It's called Deep Blue. It's where you get the true stories of BYU athletes and coaches from their own mouths. It's hosted by my colleague, Jason Shepard. Last season, they had great interviews on Deep Blue, including Cougar quarterback Gary Bohannon. He teared up quite a bit talking about his son and what it means for his boy to watch his dad play. Also, BYU swimmer Jordan Tiffany, who quit swimming due to mental health struggles. He talked about how he was able to get back in the pool again. More great conversations for season number 3. BYU running back Hinckley Rapati will talk about his tear-filled journey to BYU. Former BYU tight end Chad Lewis, he's going to reflect back on that special 1996 BYU football season. And BYU basketball players Richie Saunders and Fuseni Traore discuss their unique relationship. It started way before they got to BYU. Please subscribe and listen to Deep Blue with Jason Shepard wherever you get podcasts, or check it out on the BYU Radio app.